Welcome to the Offshore Club's fun-filled, fact-filled, fast-paced blockbuster podcast, Coffee with Carib Carter, coming to you exclusively from where the sun never sets on the good life at a great price. And now, fill up your favorite coffee mug and join your expert and your guide, Carib Carter Clues.
Welcome to Coffee with Carib Carter. Let's do this thing. Episode 46. I can't believe it. We have been together almost a year now. As a matter of fact, we finished a year, right? Because we started right at the beginning of 2021. And so now we're in a new year and a new you as you continue to prepare to make your move offshore to good life at a great price in the sun, sand, and surf of Central and South America, right? All right. Remember, I have two homes there. Going to buy a third in Nicaragua. My two are in Honduras. I want you to join me. I want you to join me. It's just honest to God, especially nowadays, it's just a better life. I'm going to touch on that in the Mad Max moment in just a few minutes. But you know, I thought about over the past year, do you realize that we have looked at 40 different properties now throughout Central and South America? I mean, we're talking all the way from Mexico to Uruguay. Okay. And extremely affordable. Some of it anywhere from $30,000, right? All the way up to, I think the highest we've looked at has been about, what, 150,000? Every place in between. Gorgeous, beautiful homes that would cost 10 times as much if you bought them in the U.S., okay? For instance, my own home, beachfront, on the ocean, not ocean view, on the ocean. Let's say a beach club, $30,000. That's $300,000 home. I'm going to show it to you again later. I know some of you are saying, Carter, you have shown it to us every episode for 40 episodes, which is not quite true. I only bought it, I think, 20 episodes ago. What's funny, some of you recall, I showed that home on one of our $1,000 listing Caribbean segments. I showed it. And after I showed it to you all, I turned around and bought it because I want this one. So when I show one to you, better grab it because somebody else like me is going to grab it instead. So we've had, just an incredible time together. We've looked at everything from, as we say, I've told you the quaint homes in little communities throughout Central and South America, what we call quaint homes. We looked at cozy homes in small residential resort developments, guarded, gated, like let's say a beach club where I bought mine. Then the gorgeous communities, what we call the Mike Cobb communities, like Grand Pacifica, Nicaragua, all the amenities, the stores, the coffee shops, the golf, horseback, everything. And also very recently prices. I think you can get one there for about $150. So we had a heck of a year, and this year is going to be even better. We have some great things coming up this year, including our first ever Offshore Club conference, right? For Offshore Club members only, a conference where we're going to talk about every aspect of making your move offshore. Great speakers, including some of those you already know from the podcast at your Offshore Club. In Belize, 4 days in Ambergris Key, one of the most beautiful spots in the Caribbean. You're going to love it. We call it the Offshore Summit. So circle your calendar for May. Okay, I'll get the exact dates for you. I'm going to fill you in with a lot of information in the coming months, but get ready for it because it will be the best offshore conference in the history of international conference. I guarantee it, because a lot of the people you're going to know and like already because you've seen them on this show or with their own podcast at offshore.club or in the newsletter, the free newsletter, the Offshore Club Gazette. Make sure you subscribe to it. Just go to offshore.club, subscribe to the newsletter. Every day it's free with incredible information. And you'll get to meet a lot of people that you're going to do a hands-on time with at the Offshore Summit in Belize in May, okay? This is not a distant speakers. We're all together, mingle, dinner, breakfast, lunch, dinner together. Fantastic time together because we are family, as the one of those groups when I was a kid used to sing. We are family. And so it is that's what's coming up in the coming year, along with a lot of other incredible $1,000 listing Caribbean offshore properties and interviews. We have two of which we have today, not one, but two. We have an interview with Dr. Chris Patterson. Okay. You're going to love him. And we have something very special for you, because with these two interviews, for the first time ever, I have a short 1-minute video clip for each of them. So the first one is Dr. Chris Patterson. Now, these are going to come up later in the show, but you're going to like this guy. He actually lived at La Ceiba Beach Club, still has a home there where I bought my home. And so he's going to talk to us all about what life was like for him in Honduras. Okay. And he really has tremendous insights, just not only about his life there, but life in general. As a matter of fact, look at this clip from Dr. Patterson, where he talks about what it means to him to be a doctor, because I think you're going to relate to that and say to yourself, I'm glad he's a member of the club. And I'm glad this is the kind of person that we get to know through the Offshore Club. So, super producer Gary, let's roll that 1-minute clip here with Dr. Chris Patterson.
If I said I wanted to be an engineer or a scientist or a dentist, my parents always had a reason why I shouldn't be that, so they steered me into being a doctor. I did have a grandfather that lived to a very ripe old age of almost 106, and he inspired me, I think, to go into geriatrics. I get to help people, and I get to figure out whatever I can figure out to help them do the best that they can. I do all my own electrical and plumbing work. I like to fix things, so if it's not people I'm trying to fix, it's something else. I was particularly drawn to the PACE program. PACE, the best model of care that I've ever seen, and I really wanted to be a part of it. Well, I think we just try to do the best that we can, and I think it's important to help one another and be the best human being that we can be.
Okay, I promised you two interviews. The second interview is with someone who is incredibly inspiring. Okay. You know what? During the interview, you're going to hear me say to her, you really define courage to me. And when you see the interview, you're going to say, you're exactly right, Carter. Courtenay Turner. She, we usually do a motivational moment at the end. She is the motivational, not moment, but lifetime, to show you how motivational. We're going to interview her later in the show, but let's look at the 1-minute clip that we have of Courtenay so you can get to know her a little bit now, so you'll know what you have to look forward to a little bit later. Let's roll it.
I was born with congenital rubella. My mother, in the first trimester of pregnancy, had German measles. Cataract surgery back then was very different than it is now, so they left debris. Had heart surgery when I was about a year old. I'm legally deaf. My growth was stunted. I was born missing 10 teeth, graphic motor impairment, and they told my mother to go find a nice institution for me to spend the rest of my life. There's just so many things nobody expected me to be able to do. So I really want to explore what is movement to other people. Performance artists, movement artists, athletes with disabilities and challenges.
Even though I don't have legs, to me, in the grand scheme of things, I'm like, that is just not a big deal.
I know you will never stop moving.
The human body is really capable of anything that you put your mind to.
He was like, you basically saved your mother's life by making her work out.
I hope that all of you are going to be excited about joining me on this journey and discovering what movement means to other people, how it heals them, how it inspires them, and hopefully it'll inspire you too.
Incredible. And stunning. That's the only word I've got for it. Stunning. And you think that's stunning. Wait till you see the interview that's coming up. Okay. It's going to grab you. You're going to love it. And it's going to help you make your move offshore. I'll guarantee it. Okay. Because she talks about movement being the essence of life. Okay. And who is showing that more than those who are making your move offshore. So you're going to love that interview coming up. Before we get to that, though, I am going to do a quick Mad Max moment for you. Okay. Those of you who are longtime viewers know that the Mad Max moment is where I tell you, with everything else in the show, I'm telling you what you're going to find when you get to the good life at a great price in Central and South America, offshore. At the Mad Maximum, I'm going to tell you why you need to make that move to get the heck out of here. Okay. Every time I think of the Mad Maximum, I think of that song when I was a kid. I think it was the Animals. We got to get out of this place. If it's the last thing we ever do. Well, folks, it's gotten to that point, hasn't it? I mean, you had a president of the United States late last week refer to those who supported his opponent in the last election as striking at daggers at the throat of America and characterize them as domestic terrorists. We have never in history had a president that was that, I'm just going to say it, dangerously divisive. But that's not the only reason you need to leave. That's not going to stop, by the way. Remember, I worked in Washington 50 years. I know these politicians. They're up to something. That's not going to stop. But let's bring it closer to home. I want to show you something that is just stunning to me. It's stunning to me because it gives me the reason why, I have it in my papers over here, why, folks, you got to get ready to make this move offshore. For God's sake, for your own safety. Look at this. Look at this. See this chart? Homicides. Look at the percentage increase in homicides in this country, in those cities, from 2019 to 2021. That is absolutely shocking. And it's coming to a neighborhood near you. I'm just going to tell you that outright. Last fall, the FBI, and I'm sure they underplayed it, they said that murder rates were up 29% nationally in this country. 29%. 4,901 more murders in 2020 than 2019. 45% higher in 2021 than 2019. Folks, look, I've got all these figures. It makes me sick. They're almost too sickening to go into. 178% increase in the murder rate in Austin, Texas. 150% in Portland, Oregon. For God's sake, folks. Folks, if you cannot walk down the street free, you are not free. In Central and South America, I'm telling you, I live there. You can walk down the street free. And as a matter of fact, across the border from the U.S., where we have all this going on, in Tijuana and Ciudad Juarez, where you always say, oh my God, no, their murder rates are down. Their murder rates are down. I'm telling you, you are safer in Central and South America, in cities and towns all over Central and South America than now in the U.S. The Nicaragua has a lower murder rate per 100,000 than the U.S. now. El Salvador has cut theirs by 75%. You got to be able to walk and live and breathe free. And that's your own safety. So that's the Mad Max moment. That's the Mad Max moment. Most of our show is about what a great thing is when you get there. The Mad Max moment is the reasons why you really, honest to God, need to consider making that move for your safety, for the safety of those you love, your family. Okay. Nobody likes to think about that, but that's where we are. That's where we are. Let me, the new state's attorney from Massachusetts just said she's no longer going to prosecute a crime, trespassing and crimes against property. A representative in Texas has introduced a bill saying that if someone breaks into your home, you are not to defend it, because if they didn't need your property, they want to broken in. The hell? Yeah. New state district attorney or attorney in New York has said the same thing. Police in New York cannot arrest people for resisting arrest now. They can't take them in for that anymore. Well, you're not going to find that in Central and South America. Okay, so enough of that. We need to change. Let me change the tone now, because everything else, let's go back to being happy. Okay. We like happy talk on Coffee with Carib Carter, but we do have to sometimes tell the truth about what's really going on, because you need to make serious decisions and in order to be happy south of the border. I'm going to change my mindset and your mindset with an excerpt from one of my favorite songs right now. Roll it. I just needed that. I just needed that. It's just, don't worry, be happy. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. That's why our founding fathers wrote that they needed to guarantee the pursuit of happiness. Okay. And we're pursuing it across the border. Is what we're doing. And one of the ways we're going to pursue it across the border right now is in this interview I have coming up right now. It's an interview with Dr. Chris Patterson. I already told you a little bit about him. And he is a medical doctor who's lived in Honduras, practiced medicine in Honduras. Just a great guy, very upbeat, positive guy. So the timing is perfect right after Don't Worry, Be Happy. So let's welcome Chris. And when you see this interview, I think you're going to enjoy it and you're going to get a lot of good information from it. Dr. Chris, welcome to Coffee with Carib Carter. There's my coffee mug there.
It's too late in the day for me to have coffee. So mine is a dark substance, but it's room temperature. Yeah.
So we'll have Coffee with Carib Carter and wine with Dr. Chris. There we go. I think people are going to prefer yours to mine, to be honest with you. So we have something in common, that we both own homes at La Ceiba Beach Club in Honduras.
Well, actually, I own multiple properties in Honduras, but I just have land. I've been going down there now for over a decade and investing in beachfront property. And
Wow.
So when I go down there, I stay a lot of times with friends, or I'll stay at a resort down there and check out my properties. But I have yet to actually build on any of the properties that I have down there.
But would you say then that, because, with Offshore Club members, wide variety. Some, I said the other day that they really look for our members look for three types of properties in Central and South America: a house, which is an investment. Okay. Someplace they're going to buy and rent out or keep and sell eventually as the prices go up. A hideaway, second home, vacation home, or a home where they intend to live, which I encourage people to do all the time. So would you say most of your properties you're buying are investment properties?
Well, I've been planning on building down there, but I haven't decided yet exactly where I want to build and what I want to build. And I've also just been waiting for the right time. I'm very busy with my medical practice and trying to figure out how Honduras is going to fit into my life. I tend to do things very carefully and methodically, and one of the medical schools I work with has clinics in Honduras, for instance, and
right.
So I might wind up eventually being semi-retired, teaching down there. And I originally had thought I would be kind of going back and forth, but now with the two large dogs and life, some things in life have changed. I was looking for my escape plan, and Honduras was kind of my escape plan, but
right.
I've actually found a new role as a physician here that I'm really enjoying, and I'm teaching medical residents, and I'm very content with my life right here and now. And so trying to still figure out how Honduras is going to fit in. But I at one point had up to 6 different beachfront lots in Honduras. Wow. And I sold the one that was east of Trujillo. And so I still have 4 lots that are all adjoining in La Ceiba Beach Club, what used to be called La Ceiba Beach Club Phase 3. And then I have another lot in another development that's just a little further to the west.
Do you still have the lot in Trujillo?
No, that's the one I sold.
That's the one you sold. Yeah.
Right.
I have to say, I thought I visited Trujillo, had to be 10 years ago. And I thought that was one of the most beautiful beaches I have ever seen in my life. Gorgeous.
Yeah, they have a gorgeous bay there. And, it's where Columbus dropped anchor his third and final voyage to the New World. And that's why Trujillo is the oldest city in Honduras. And, certainly a lot, the whole Spanish movement into Central America, was really based on that. And so I just got a new patient yesterday, and he's from Nicaragua. So I was talking to him about that part of the country, because obviously that, we're getting close to Nicaragua when you get to Trujillo.
Yeah.
But that bay there is just gorgeous, and
it's stunning.
Property I had was a little further to the east, so it was actually on that peninsula that formed the bay, but it wasn't right on the bay, and so it just didn't have the same appeal as being on that bay, which would have made it nicer, I think.
When I was in Trujillo, I know exactly what you're saying about the beauty, because I remember what somebody said to me, Columbus landed here 500 years ago. And before he left, he said, "This is perfectly beautiful. Don't change anything until I get back." And we haven't. So it is gorgeous. And also, I found the people in Trujillo very friendly. Well, across the board, let's talk about that, because you own properties, obviously, in different places in Honduras. The Honduras, gets a, when you say, I think San Pedro Sula, evidently at one time there was massive crime. I can tell you it's not that bad now, because I've spent a lot of time in San Pedro Sula, walk the streets, the mall is gorgeous. But the people of Honduras, I just have, tell me if you share this. I found them just wonderfully warm and friendly and gracious people.
Oh, absolutely. And, they are a very friendly people. And I've always enjoyed my time there. And, but, the main, reason I wound up, I looked all around the Caribbean, because I just love the Caribbean. I love water. I love water sports. I'm a windsurfer, and a lot of the cruises I've been on, I do these blues cruise, legendary rhythm and blues cruise, once or twice a year. And typically they're Caribbean and go to different areas. But when I actually researched, owning property and that sort of thing as a primary care physician, I found that Honduras was really the best value and something I could actually afford, and whereas, you could get basically a palace in Honduras for what you'd pay for a 2-bedroom condo with maybe a distant view of water in Costa Rica,
Yeah. Yes.
And Panama and Costa Rica have just, blossomed, and the prices have really, gone tremendously high over the last couple decades. But Honduras actually has more national parks and more recreational, natural recreational opportunities than Costa Rica does. But they just haven't been able to capitalize on it as yet.
No, you're right. And, it has, I have lived, I own a home now in La Ceiba Beach Club, right on the ocean. I just love it.
I've been in your house.
You got to be, I have not been in my house yet, because
before
we were going to go down, and we got stuck here because my brother broke his hip. So my wife and I couldn't go down. So you've been in my house, and I have not.
I know exactly where your house is. I've been in it. Yeah.
It's nice, right?
Well, yeah, it was Chris's house, Chris Barrett's house, right?
That's right. It was the developer's house. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I have a home there on the beach now, but before that, I lived right at the foot. I owned a home in El Pino. Are you familiar with El Pino?
No, I'm not familiar with
El Pino is about a half an hour outside of La Ceiba.
Okay.
further down the road, essentially, is what it is.
Yeah.
Other side of the airport, and it's at the foothills of. It's right at the base of Pico Bonito,
Okay.
and you talked about the variety of Honduras, folks. Honduras has gorgeous beaches, but Pico Bonito is a beautiful rainforest mountain, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And and like for my property, for instance, you're standing right there at the beach and you do an about face and you've got a beautiful mountain view right there. And I've stayed yeah, at a resort up in Pico Bonito, and
Yeah.
you can stay there for a week and eat and drink, and they give you your tab at the end of the week, and it's like $250. It's like this was awesome. Yeah.
Less than one night here. And one thing I loved when I used to take the chicken bus, right? The chicken buses, and Dr. Chris and I are going to both laugh when we say the chicken buses. Folks, let me tell you something. And Chris, I think you'll back me up on this. Folks, if you see a school bus in your county, your city, that gets so, they don't want to use it anymore, it's just gotten too old and rickety, you're going to see it in Honduras or Nicaragua somewhere.
That's where old school buses go to retire for sure. Yeah. I actually saw a school bus from Polk County, North Carolina, down there, and I practiced medicine in Polk County for almost 20 years. And so when I saw that, it was, it was just perfect.
I used to ride one that on the side it said Durham School District. It still said it right on the side of the bus. By the way,
Yeah.
and share with me I never saw a chicken on a chicken bus. I swear to God. I did see one goat one time, but I never saw, they got the name chicken because they said they brought their chickens.
Yeah.
I never saw a chicken on a chicken.
Now,
Did you?
Now on the ferry from the barrier islands there, coming to the mainland, there's been livestock on that, but yeah, not on the bus.
I always laughed. I lived on Roatan Island, Dr. Chris. I lived on Roatan Island for about 6 months, and it always amused me because now remember, this is 10 or 12 years ago, and they told me they have an airport, they have an international airport on Roatan Island. They said the biggest challenge they had was a lot of times before they could land, they'd have to radio down to go chase the cows off the runway. So, I would imagine they don't have that, but 10 or 12 years ago, yeah, it was still that pristine.
Well, about that time when I was looking in Trujillo, they were saying they had an airport, and really what it was a road that they could land on. It wasn't a real airport like La Ceiba has a real airport.
Yeah.
And you can get a flight from Roatan to La Ceiba, or you can fly from San Pedro Sulu. I usually do fly to San Pedro, and then I rent a car and drive to La Ceiba. But definitely, La Ceiba has an actual airport that has scheduled flights and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I've flown out of La Ceiba Airport over to Roatan a couple of times because I get seasick if I take the ferry boat.
Yeah, if you're going to take the ferry, you need to take it in the morning. The afternoon ferry can be quite the amusement park ride, and it's not for the faint of stomach.
No, it's not. Now, flying into San Pedro Sula, I too, just as you said, I fly into San Pedro Sula because Spirit Airline lands there. And from Baltimore, I live in York, Pennsylvania now, and I fly from Baltimore Washington Airport to San Pedro Sula, and $400 round trip is not at all unusual. Folks, think about that. The flights are not expensive, and it's a fairly quick flight. I think 6 hours or whatever.
And the flight out of Miami, for instance, to get there is less than 2 hours. So, when I think about, okay, well, what if you needed healthcare? Well, if you're living down there and you need, it's not that hard to get a flight to Florida or to Texas to get a direct flight, for instance. So, it's very doable if you want to try and have, say, the majority of your health care in the United States. If you're living down there, they do have requirements as far as how long you can actually stay. They like to get that exit tax from you of whatever it is, $14 every few months, and they regulate how long. During the pandemic here, they waived that, so people didn't have to leave and redo their visa and come back. That's one of the few minor inconveniences that Honduras has.
Let me ask you this: you're a doctor, and what about just routine health care? That's a question that Offshore Club members always have in a country like Honduras. What about, I'm not talking like a heart transplant or something, but routine health care. How is it in Honduras?
I mean, I know that there's a private hospital and in that system, and then there's the public system. And you or I would never use the public system. And as far as I understand it, that the private hospital system was very good. I've only really utilized, or my family's utilized, the dental care there. It's amazing how you can get crowns and dental work done for a fraction of what it costs in the United States. Yeah. And so that's really the only health care that I have personal knowledge of from my family. Well, I had great teeth up until recently, but so I didn't need anything. But my wife was able to get some much needed dental work at a very inexpensive rate down there.
I know my wife has had dental work there for literally a tenth of the cost of what it would be up here. Yeah, literally, and good quality healthcare. Not pliers and a X-Acto knife or something.
No, these are very well, they're very trained, state-of-the-art people, but again, the cost is just so much less.
Yeah, very, very much so. So what would be, when you have gone back and forth for years, what would be a typical day for you when you're down there visiting? Did you go into La Ceiba and
oh, sure. Yeah.
To the
Yeah, and they redid the shoreline there, and they put in like a real nice new dock and park there, and I think they're gearing up to have cruise ships eventually docking there. So it's just amazing. You go every few years and you go down and you see what the progress has been made, and you see there's a new Walmart and new restaurants. So they've redone the beachfront or the shoreline there along La Ceiba, and so they continue to improve, and so it just keeps getting better and better.
Let me ask you this. One of the things that I always felt really could be, and I think will be a tourist attraction, is the pier. That now when I lived there, the pier, it was the old, I think, Standard Fruit pier that actually had train trestles on it from when they would go with the bananas in the train and offload them. And I used to jog, and I'd have to be a little careful not to fall through into the water. I think I saw a picture. They've remodeled that pier now, haven't they?
Yeah. It looks not like a very modern, nice type of pier that you would see that's comparable to something you would see in Mexico or one of the other main places where cruise ships would go. Mm-hmm.
So we're almost out of time. So let me ask you a question, because you have bought, I own two properties. I own one in, obviously, La Ceiba Beach Club, where we both have property. Then I own one in a little town called, I always pronounce it wrong, El Calan Villanueva de Corte, which is just a quaint little community. What would you say to people who are thinking of investing in property in Honduras at this point?
Well, I think there's no substitute for getting down there and getting eyes on and meeting people and actually seeing the property and standing on the property and checking out the nearby amenities and understanding what it would be like, if for someone to live there. And my thing, I didn't necessarily buy it as much as of an for an investment as I did. I was buying it for myself, but then what happened was I kept buying more and more because I just wasn't sure what I really wanted, what I liked, how much was I going to build. I've got those 4 lots that are all together, and it's like I don't really need a compound down there. I really just need, a place to be, and so I kind of bit off more than I could chew, or certainly bought more than I really needed. And so now I'm in the process of trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to actually keep? What am I going to sell? But it's, again, getting down there and being able to just experience it, I think is important, because even if you're only buying it as an investment, you need to look at it through, well, what would someone want when they actually go down to Honduras? And there's having access to shopping and restaurants and the beach, and being able to feel like you're really in paradise, and being able to mingle with people that you would be your neighbors and that sort of thing. So I think that's the most important thing, is to really actually experience it. I wouldn't recommend anyone just be buying things sight unseen.
Right. Well, we appreciate it. And if you decide, you have any of the properties that you want to sell, let us know and we'll put them up on offshore.club, because I have a feeling a lot of our members, especially after hearing this interview, are going to say, I got to take a look at that. So
like I said, I strongly recommend people, figure out a way, get themselves down there. I know during the pandemic, I was limited. I really, they were pretty much on lockdown for a good while there. And I've made friends down there that I stay in touch with, and, sometimes stay with, or I'll make arrangements, like I said, at one of the resorts to stay while I'm down there, or I'll do a mix and match. I'll stay with some friends for a couple of days, then I'll go up in Pico Bonito and stay up there.
Right.
But just to get a feel for it and experience it, I think is always a good start. And if nothing else, you wind up seeing a part of the world that you otherwise probably wouldn't experience, and being able to have something that's a great time and a great memory.
And enjoy yourself. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Dr. Chris. It's been great. I'm glad we had a chance to meet. I'm sure that you've already been in my house, and it looks great. I've got to get out and do it myself now.
I don't know how it looks right now, but when I was there, it was fine.
Well, my wife's been down. She says it looks fantastic. Okay. So we're good. All right. Thank you, sir. This has been
all right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye now.
Wow. What a great guy. What a great guy. Thank God he's going to be my neighbor down there at La Ceiba Beach Club. And speaking of La Ceiba Beach Club, I was going to do, at this point, right at the conclusion of the interview we just finished, $1,000 listing Caribbean for La Ceiba Beach Club, because believe it or not, there is another home very much like mine, as a matter of fact, exactly like mine, next door to mine at La Ceiba Beach Club for only $35,000. Okay. Now you've just heard Dr. Chris talk about how great it is there. So you might want to, consider becoming my neighbor. And I promise you, next week on Coffee with Carib Carter, I'm going to go over that particular property for you, tell you how to get in touch with the owner so you can grab it up before somebody else does. All right. We're going to do that, but we don't have time now because we have another incredible interview, just as I promised, an incredible interview that I am going to guarantee you is going to be 20 of the most inspiring minutes you have ever spent. Okay. Courtenay Turner is, you know what? Instead of my trying to wax eloquent here, let's just go straight to this interview. And I'll guarantee you are going to thank me for this. Okay. You're going to thank me for this because she is inspiring and she's going to inspire you. So, super producer Gary, let's roll it. Courtenay, welcome to Coffee with Carib Carter. Yeah, right there. I got it right there. Let's do this thing. Let's enjoy ourselves. And I want to say right from the outset, I have been looking forward to this interview now for weeks on end, ever since the first time I discovered you online and said, this is one of the most inspiring people I have ever seen in my entire life. So welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Your story, folks, you have to go, as I said earlier in the show, you have to go to Courtenay Turner .com. Make sure you spell her name right there, because this is a story that is going to make your life better. Make your life better. We're going to talk, Courtenay, you and I are going to talk about your program called What is Movement, right? Very vital program, because everything about the Offshore Club is movement. We're trying to help people move offshore. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
A good life at a
big move.
What'd you say?
I said, that's a big move. Yeah.
That's a big move. And they need inspiration from you to do it. And that's why I really appreciate your being here. Let's talk a minute about your background so people will know they are listening to someone who, as far as I'm concerned, defines courage. Absolutely. It's remarkable. You were born with, is it rubella? Is that what?
Yeah. My mom had germ measles during first trimester of pregnancy. Yeah.
Yeah. So give us a little bit about that background, because then I think people realize this is someone I want to listen to for a long time to come. Okay.
So they told my mother she had so they actually did not know that I was going to be affected. My mom had germ measles, rubella is the other term for it. But the doctor was actually dyslexic. He read the titer as being 112 and the titer was really 121. So the doctor read the titer indicating that the child, the baby, meaning me, had not been affected. But he was incorrect. I was affected. And so I was born with congenital rubella. We're very happy that he made this mistake, though, because they would have advised my mom to have an abortion otherwise. So, yeah. So I am very grateful for his mistake.
Yes.
But I was born with several complications as a result. I was born with a cataract in one eye. And so I have unilateral blindness. I am bilaterally hearing impaired, but I didn't get hearing aids until I was almost 6 years old. I learned how to speak by reading lips. I was born with hypotonic limbs. So for those who don't know what that is, like I'm sure many people have heard the term hypertrophy. That's when the muscles develop and they build. Mine wouldn't. So it was hypotonic. But it was fortunately my limbs. My growth was stunted. I had asymmetrical bone development, fine and graphic motor impairment, stunted growth, like missing teeth, all sorts of challenges. Yeah. So they told my mom the best she could hope is to find a nice institution for me to spend my life.
Unbelievable. But I have seen videos, we showed one earlier, of you doing incredible gymnastics.
Yeah. So I fell in love with gymnastics at a very young age because my mom had this idea of, I wore a patch over my sighted eye every other day of my childhood. And I didn't have hearing aids yet. So I was essentially blind and deaf every other day. And my mom had this idea that if she built a beam that I walked on, whether or not I could see or not, and at the end of the week, if I completed it successfully, they would make the beam narrower. So my grandfather built this beam. And when I was about 4 years old, I went to day camp and I saw a balance beam in the gymnasium, and I ran over to it because it was all familiar and super exciting to me. And I started gymnastics, and I really fell in love with the sport. So
unbelievable. I think I've seen you climbing a rope and everything, right?
Yeah. So now I do aerial acrobatics, and up until about 2 years ago, I was actually performing and speaking. I would do aerial acrobatic performances with my speeches, not at the same time, usually after the speech, but that would be pretty cool if it was while I was speaking. But yeah, so, and it translates, it's a kind of like gymnastics in the air, but yeah, it's super fun.
Pretty stunning. And so at what point, one thing you said in one of the bios I read or something, you had one line that really touched me. It said, sometimes young children can be very unkind, right? So you face obstacles that, I don't think a lot of our viewers, and we have a lot of viewers because the Offshore Club is very big, face any kind of the traumas that you have, but some probably had childhood where, other kids, you faced that and you overcame that too.
Yeah, I mean, I think kids in general are kind of cruel, and I think that I think most people have experienced that.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't for the entire duration of their schooling, they at least at some point they've experienced that children aren't always super warm and fuzzy. But they were really, really brutal to me, really brutal. I was mercilessly bullied, and yeah, it was pretty tough at times.
I have to say, you said most children had that. Actually, what's funny is I did not, because my dad was a Methodist minister. So all the other little kids were afraid if they bullied me, they'd die and go to hell. And that's what I told them.
You're like, we're going to keep the story going.
You didn't have that advantage. There we go. So, but you did overcome it. And it was because you overcame all of this that you are such a help to other people now in terms of moving forward, I was watching an interview the other day with the Canadian doctor. We've mentioned his name before. What the heck is his name? He's very popular now. Like, he's a psychiatrist. You see him all the time. And you said he had said some things you didn't agree with, but overall he was pretty positive guy. But at any rate, he was saying in an interview, I think with Grant Cardone, that happiness is moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I really liked.
So I think, that stems a lot from hope. People, I don't think people often know what hope really means. And hope is the literal definition of hope is having the sense that you have control over some aspect of your future. Yeah. So that gives you something to look forward to. I think a lot of times when we feel like we're completely out of control, and so much is out of our control, that's life. That's part of being human.
That's life.
But when we feel like there's nothing that we have any control over in our future, that fills us with anxiety and despair. And that can be very troubling and dark, and it can be paralyzing for people. They have a hard time moving forward, literally. There was a statistic, it was several years ago that I saw, and it really struck me that for somebody who was suicidal, for them to want to know what's going to happen next week on their favorite TV show was enough to keep them alive. And yeah, so profound, right? And that speaks to the power of hope, because it's the hope that there's something to look forward to. And that, I think, when you're saying that moving forward is the key to happiness, and it is, because when we're stuck, that's when we feel we're stuck, we're paralyzed, we feel filled with anxiety or despair. Either we're, we start ruminating over the past that we can't control because it's always done, and things that we wish would have gone differently. Or we're fixated on the things in the future that are unknown and outside of our control. So the only way to, get out of that and to lift ourselves up, literally and figuratively, is to move through it. Stagnation is always the leading cause of death, literally and figuratively. So you have to move through it. Yeah.
And you have with our people, a lot of the Offshore Club members, a lot of them live offshore. They're at this point, they're expats. A lot of them are making preparations. I just talked this morning to one, Sarah is an incredible person, is heading to Mexico to get her set up residency. I mean, incredible person. I just love her. And we have others in the same. Then we have others who are afraid to make the move. And I think you said a key word, Courtenay, the unknown. My father used to say to me, when I was at Methodist ministers, when I was a kid, moved like every 5 to 7 years. And so as a little kid, right, I remember we lived in Hancock, Maryland, the friendliest town on the face of the earth, okay, at the time. We're talking in 1960, okay? And Dad came in one day and said to the family, we're moving to Baltimore City. He might as well have said, I've been transferred to hell. I mean, it was like Baltimore City. Oh my God. Hancock had 2,000 people. We moved to a high school where my high school had 6,000 students, right?
Wow.
So it was like, I don't want to go. He said, well, number one, you have to go. Number two, once you get there, just do it. Once you do it and make the move.
Yeah.
And of course, it was the most wonderful thing that ever happened. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah, that's absolutely it. You just have to keep going. You know, you're gonna the unknown will soon become known, but stay stuck. It's always going to be unknown, right? And that's the part that's terrifying to people. Is really it being unknown. I recently moved. I didn't move offshore, but I did move across the country. And this is the second time I've done that in my adult life. So the first time I moved from New York to LA, and then I moved from LA to Tennessee, Middle Tennessee. So,
and that's where you are now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you know, you've made obviously incredibly bold moves your entire life. So what is movement, and how is that going to help Offshore Club members, not just in this podcast, but I hope and pray you stay with us, become part of our family, so it's for years to come. So talk about what is movement, how it works, what you do, and what it can mean for Offshore Club members, if you don't mind.
So WIM, What is Movement, is a show where we explore ways that movement helps people to heal emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. So my premise is that all human beings are designed to move, but the ways in which we do are our unique creative expressions. So I feel very strongly that movement is a metaphor for life. And, you know, I don't need to go wax poetic about, you know, the benefits of physical activity and training on our physical well-being. I think, you know, that speaks for itself. But I think a lot of people don't pay as much attention to some of the psychological and certainly even the cognitive benefits. But in terms of the psychological benefits and the metaphorical aspect of it, I think it's really, really powerful. We experience in so much in life that is intangible. You know, so many of the lessons that we learn in life we're not aware of. People don't really stop to think or examine. But when you take on a physical practice, you can't escape it. So I'll give a really simple example, but typically when you're doing something physical, you know, you either complete it or you don't. So when I coached CrossFit, and a lot of beginners would come in, particularly women in the beginning, would say they could never do a push-up, like a real, you know, traditional push-up, not what they call women's push-ups. Mm-hmm. I would always say that I'm never going to be able to do that. I heard that a lot, and it would always really surprise me. I'm like, yeah, you can, you know, maybe not today, but you can. And it was just so amazing to watch people not just succeed the push-up, because I could see them doing it long before they could. I knew they had that potential. But to see that process and to see what it taught them about themselves, because you can't fake your way through it. You have to put the work in.
That's it.
And the results that you get teach you so much, not just about, you know, work ethic, discipline, and that sort of thing, but they teach you a lot about how you handle adversity. And we all face adversity. That's just, you know, a fact of life. Yep. You know, I listed the litany of adversity I was born with, but I've encountered so much more since then, you know, and I will encounter so much more from today on, you know, that's just a guarantee. But I think it's really powerful for us to examine, how do we face it and how do we overcome it? Mm-hmm. It's not something that you can analyze things so you're blue in the face. That doesn't necessarily give you tools. But when you have a physical practice, it acts as a mirror that can show you how you're handling challenges and where you can improve, where you're doing well, what's working for you. And you know, the other side of it that is really interesting too is, what do you do when things come easy to you? What do you do when things come naturally to you? And does the way you handle that serve you in facing your challenges?
Very good. Very good. Yeah. You know, it's there's an old saying, and I know you've heard it a million times, you know, especially with all you've been through, there's no gain without pain. Okay. We've all heard that. And you know what? As trite as it may sound, it's actually true.
Yeah.
The great gains in life are through pain.
Sure.
And if you're not enduring some pain, chances are, in my opinion, and you're the expert, you're not growing. You're not growing.
I don't think it's the pain itself that helps you grow. I think it's how you move through that pain.
There we go.
That's really the key. So there are a lot of people who have, you know, more masochistic tendencies or who like to be martyrs, and they're very happy to mire in pain. And they are. Look at me, I'm suffering. Well, congratulations. We all suffer, you know? That's really
what are you doing? What are you doing with the suffering? That's the key.
What?
What are you doing with the suffering?
Exactly.
That's the key.
Exactly. And how are you moving through it? Because that's going to give you the tools and lessons to face other challenges, to overcome adversity in the future, and to inspire others, right?
And to inspire others. Yeah. Yeah. You
You're
know,
not inspired by the fact that you're suffering. I mean, unless you're a sadist, you know, like that's not the inspiring part. And that is not the empowering aspect of it. Yes, we all suffer. And yes, we do need to experience a certain amount of pain, but we need to experience that pain so that we can move through it and show ourselves that we're capable of handling it, so that we can take on bigger challenges moving forward. And I think that's the great thing about movement, because it does show you that, you know, you build upon the things that you learn. You know, when you first start training, you know, some people can't lift more than 5 pounds. And then a year later, maybe they can lift 50, you know, or much, much more. But they build on what they learn. They build on their foundations. And that is true for everything in life.
Everything in life.
Even if something comes really naturally to somebody, if they don't build foundations and they don't build on what they're learning, they have gaps. And those gaps are going to come up later on and smack them in the face, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. And with you know, what's fascinating is I'm 75 years old. Okay. So most of my friends my age are either think they're poached eggs or potted plants. I mean, I'm sorry. They're like Joe Biden. I'm just going to say it straight out. And the fact is, part of that is because they didn't move. They didn't move. They didn't move physically, and they didn't move emotionally, and they didn't move mentally. And one of the things that I help, you know, I do a Carib Carter Minute every day on social media. And sometimes I do it from my weight room in the basement, which is, you know, if anybody saw the Rocky movie with Mr. T, I think it was the second one, you know, my basement is like Mr. T where he worked out. It's like, my God, who would even want to go there? But I do one from there because I want to help people understand, you know, you have to keep moving. You have to tackle things that are not entirely comfortable. And when you do, and part and parcel of that for Offshore Club members is working up the courage and taking the steps to make that move offshore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huge.
You don't do it all at once, right? There's all sorts of documents you need to do. You need to pack things up. Like there's a lot of little pieces. So you build on it. You figure out what you're going to tackle first. And when you accomplish something, it's so empowering. So that's a huge part of movement, is that you're moving through. It's like climbing steps on a ladder, right? When you look up a really, really tall staircase or a ladder, it's daunting. When you're halfway up, you're like, okay, I can keep going. So that accomplishment, and that's movement.
And that's movement. And I think, you know, when I first moved to Honduras like 11 or 12 years ago, right? And I decided, I could have moved to some gated community or something, but I decided, no, I want to be with real Hondurans. I don't want to move to be around a bunch of Americans and Canadians. So I moved to a little town. It was so far out in the outback of Honduras. It was called El Pino, right? And when I said to a friend of mine, congressman in Honduras, he said, well, where'd you move to? I said, El Pino. He said, I've never heard of that life. So it was a major move, but it was because I wanted to make a movement that would really be stimulating and challenging. And some of our people, we every week I show them a property and I research it and say, okay, here's one. Last week I showed them one that in I think it was Costa Rica, but it was way out. You had to go in a boat to get to it, right?
Wow.
Yeah. And it was off the grid living. And isn't that exciting? And there are some, I'll guarantee you, some of our Offshore Club members are going to consider that move. Others are going to say, where's Grand Pacifica, the gated guarded community with all the amenities, Carter? Well, whatever it is, it's still brave, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, different movements are appropriate for different people, just like in the gym. Some people need to be working on muscle ups, some people need to be working on pull ups, and, other people needed to be working on inverted rows. You got to meet them where they're at.
Which is fantastic. Well, I'll tell you what I would like, the movement I'd like from you is a promise that you will come back on every couple of weeks and talk to the Offshore Club members and keep inspiring them to make their moves, whether it's physical exercise, emotional development, or the ultimate move to the good life at a great price and the sun, sand, and surf. Would you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's awesome.
It's fantastic. And thank you very, very much. Thank you for being on. Thank you for what you shared with us today. And thank you for who you are, Courtenay. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great. So we'll see you in a week or two. Thank you very much. All right.
Okay. Hey.
So there you have it, folks. Everything I promised, right? Everything I promised you. And we are going to have Courtenay Turner on, I hope, every other week, because she is going to help you move forward, including moving forward to making your move offshore to the good life at a great price in the sun, the sand, and the surf of Central and South America. That's what we're all about, isn't it? And so, motivational moment we usually end with, I think you just had it, didn't you? So nothing I can say or do is going to be more motivational than that, other than to say to you, make your move. We're all going to join together down there, and we're going to have a great time together. We're going to have a good life. Yeah, at a great price. So let's do this thing.